I'm Phil with the Comics Pals here in 2017, and joining me is the legendary author and artist, Keith Giffen. How you doing?
I'm doing okay. Okay so far. Day's young. Oh, might go back.
How's your weekend and convention been so far?
Pretty easy. Pretty easy. I Thursday and Friday I couldn't make it because I had a crank, but yesterday and today were pretty good.
Not too bad. Do you like the city of Philadelphia?
It's a city. So it's a city. It's a nice city. It's a clean city, but it's still a city.
Fair enough. One of your most legendary collaborations is with DeMatteis on JLI, and you're working with him again on Scooby Apocalypse. How's that been going so far?
Doing great. Mark and I were on the same page, and the funny thing was, when we were done with JLI, we went 8 years without working with one another until we did formerly known as the Justice League. That was when it clicked that we had something special going on there, and I've been working with him ever since. As a matter of fact, at DC, it seems that Giffen DeMatteis actually has more weight than just Giffen or just DeMatteis. So it's kind of job security.
You guys are the real life version of the dynamic duo.
Laurel and Hardy, Abbott and Costello, or we call it a vaudeville act.
That adds up pretty well with the way JLI came together, because it's probably, in my mind, the funniest book ever published.
We never thought of it that way. I mean, I hate to say it. It was, the deadlines were there. We were just trying to make the deadlines, and we just fell into this thing. The humor wasn't planned. It was just something that happened.
Yeah, I mean, Blue Beetle and Booster Gold play. Batman and Martian Manhunter play foil to Booster and Beetle so well. You talk about vaudeville; it plays off like that.
It was shtick. Yeah. It was shtick, and we had fun doing it. And we didn't realize, we didn't think back then that we'd still be talking about One Punch today. So it's like we didn't know we knew we had a good book. We knew we had a book that was selling. But we didn't know that we had something good going together until much later.
Yeah, now it's one of the most iconic runs of the Justice League ever. I don't think that was our phone. And then flash forward to Marvel. Of course, Annihilation is, as far as major events goes, one of the most prolific and positively received books of all time. What was your process like for that?
I went over to Marvel for reasons that I'll keep to myself. And I was with Andy Schmidt, and I got Drax, and I did the Drax miniseries, and somewhere in that, Andy Schmidt started talking about the other Marvel cosmic characters, which, since Jim Starlin had pretty much walked out of Marvel at that point, or wasn't working for them, I think he was doing, I'm trying to figure out if Thanos was before or after, but I know at one point, Starlin wasn't doing anything for Marvel. Their cosmic landscape, no one was handling it. And it was Andy Schmidt who got together and said, let's do this thing. And they put together this series, and it was at the same time as Marvel's Civil War. So no one was paying any attention to us. And when it came out, it surprised us. We thought we had a healthy book, but not like that. We were stunned by the reaction.
Do you think with Civil War coming out at that time, it took some of the pressure and spotlight off and made it a little easier for you guys?
Yeah, I definitely think so. Everyone was focused on Civil War. We were sort of the dark horse. We came out of nowhere. Marvel didn't expect it. We didn't expect it. It was a pleasant surprise.
Yeah, your Drax was a bit of a reinterpretation of what the character had been before. He looks more physically resembling what people know him as now. What do you think of how he's been depicted in adaptations and so forth?
That, when it comes to adaptations, it is what it is. I mean, I enjoyed the first Guardians of the Galaxy, and I loathed the second one. But, the Drax character, we told our story. I don't have any more stories to tell with him. It's like the Star-Lord character. We started with Peter Quill. We moved him in. We had mentioned that he was Star-Lord. But I really don't have any more stories to tell with the character. So when Abbott Lanning took over, and now it's in film, if somebody finds a way to work him and can tell a good story with him, all the more power to him.
Yeah, I love your story arc with Peter Quill during Annihilation to Conquest, as he's a character with a heavy burden on his shoulders, and he doesn't identify as Star-Lord anymore. It's great. They don't do anything like that in the movies, but as far as I'm concerned, that's like the quintessential Peter Quill.
The movies didn't have the old Star-Lord to contend with. When he said Star-Lord, I had visions of a guy in the blue and yellow costume, and I thought, I don't really feel like doing that. So when we introduced him into the Thanos series as being on the Kiln prison, we got to play it our way. And then it sort of naturally fell into Annihilation. So I had my fun with the character. I'm glad I did what I did. Somebody else can take him now.
As a writer and an artist, how do you approach those two different worlds when you're going into it creatively? What's the difference there for you?
Okay, the only difference, and I mean this right now, is that it's a lot easier to write Charge of the Light Brigade than it is to draw it. And that was my revelation when I realized, wait a minute, I don't have to do all this work, but I can still call for it. So writing is just pure storytelling. And then you see how the artist interprets it. So I had to let go of a little bit there. I have a definite set. When I write something, I have a set way I see it in my head. And the hardest thing for me to accommodate was the fact that the artist isn't always going to see it my way. And so far, so good. I've been lucky.
How do you think your style and methodology has evolved over the last 40 years, especially in light of like health problems like 5 years ago? How do these life experiences impact your work?
I'm sure it does, but when it comes to my work, I don't spend a lot of time in introspection. I don't spend a lot of time examining it. I don't spend a lot of time wondering why I do certain things. Because I think if you poke around with it too much, it's really fragile, and I'm terrified I'll break it. So I do the work, and as long as I'm capable of telling the story and have plans for in the future, I'll stick with it. When I run out of stories or when I think that's about it, then I'll leave the series.
So you keep the world separate, basically. Yeah. Yesterday when I stopped by, we were talking about certain words you can't use in comics, just like the word flick. Can you tell us a little bit about the weird nuances of just random words you can't use in comics?
Well, aside from the obvious, I think George Carlin ran down all 10 of them. But stuff like flick, because the L and the I, the printing was so bad, the L and the I might merge to form a U. Comics now are not the same. Now you can pick up comics, mature reader label, they'll say shit or damn or something like that. But back then you couldn't. So you had to write your way around it. And I always hated Luke Cage. Luke Cage too, maybe? With Luke Cage in the comic, he couldn't say shit, so he say spit. Let's just avoid that. Let's figure out a different way of him talking. But it's just, you know what you can't do. I can't have a hero say, hey, nice tits. Okay, what's a better way to say it that I can sneak it by? That's basically what you do. You try to figure out ways of getting around there that the editor won't notice until it's in print.
What is the nicer way of saying nice tits?
Decent rack works.
And then a completely non sequitur question: is a hot dog a sandwich?
No. A hot dog is God's perfect food. I love hot dogs.
Is there anything else you'd like to plug moving forward?
Well, there's a project of mine coming out on Halloween, and unfortunately, I can't say what it is. But it would help if you bought it.
So at the very least, be on the lookout of a Keith Giffen project coming out around Halloween, right?
Yes, definitely be on the lookout for that. I think it'll stun a lot of people.
Any news or information about a date for the project, like the information about it?
Nothing I can say without violating a non-disclosure agreement, and that's my ass.
Gotcha. All right. Well, I'm Phil. Joining me was Keith. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. Take care, man.
Yeah. I'm Phil with the Comics Pals. And this has been Philadelphia Wizard World. Make sure you listen to our podcast every Monday. And you can like, share, and subscribe our videos and our social media pages. Until next time, take care.